Okay, good morning. My name is Student Pastor Mark Dorsett, and I will be facilitating your sermon for today. And today we are going to be talking all about our animal companions, both here and on the higher side of things. How they love us and what happens when they cross that metaphorical rainbow bridge. By the edge of a woods, at the foot of a hill, is a lush green meadow where time stands still, where the friends of man and women do run, when their time on earth is over and done. For here, between this world and the next, is a place where each beloved creature finds rest. On this golden land, they wait and they play, till the rainbow bridge they cross over one day. No more do they suffer in pain or in sadness, for here they are whole, their lives filled with gladness. Their limbs are restored, their health renewed. Their bodies have healed, their strength imbued. They run through the grass without even a care, until one day they start and sniff at the air. All ears prick forward, eyes dart front and back. All of a sudden, one breaks from the pack. Just at that instant, their eyes have met, together again, both person and pet. So they run to each other, these friends from long past. The time of their parting is over at last. The sadness they felt when they were apart has turned into joy once more in each heart. They embrace with a love that will last forever. Then side by side, they cross over together. I know that that's a longer poem, but I really like it, and I really think that that is very apropos for our subject today. So, how many of you out there are current or past pet owners? Kind of had a feeling pretty much all of everybody here. How many of you out there have had to say your final goodbyes to a beloved pet? It can be amazingly difficult to let go of those tiny souls who have occupied such a large place in our hearts. And I say tiny souls just because for most people, when we lose a pet, we're losing something like a dog or a cat or a fish or a bird or something that's generally a creature that's smaller than us human beings. Now, that isn't always the case, because I have known people who have had, bovine, equine, porcine, even marsupial animal companions that have since crossed that metaphorical bridge. So, why am I using the term animal companion as opposed to pet? Simple. Pet implies ownership. And anyone who has had an animal companion in their life for any period of time in any capacity, we can tell you that we really don't own them. They choose to remain part of our lives out of love before they finally make their way across that beautiful metaphorical rainbow bridge. Now, is anybody in the congregation today familiar with that term, the rainbow bridge? A few of you are. Okay, cool. Now, I'm sure anybody who's seen a Marvel Comics movie in the last dozen years or who knows anything about Norse mythology will have heard of the Rainbow Bridge or the Bifrost. But in connection with animals and making their transition, that term actually dates back to the early 1990s. A grief counselor in the state of Oregon first coined the term as a way for his patients to cope with the loss of their animal companions. It was really meant as a way to provide comfort to people who were mourning and to help them not feel such a sense of finality around the passing of those wonderfully unconditional, loving souls. That really is a powerful word, don't you think? Unconditional, without conditions. Anyway, I know at times that our animal companions, they may occasionally, be in a bad mood themselves or maybe act out in a way that we don't necessarily want them to. But there's always a reason for that. Just like we must do with everyone that we interact with in our lives, it is up to us not only to decode or decipher the language of our animal companions, but it's also how we choose to react to that behaviors or those actions that they take. Remember, animals inhabiting this earth plane of existence, they're the same rules that we have. They're under the same influences that we are. So we kind of have to remember that they're also souls that are learning and growing and evolving, and sometimes they can be a little upset themselves. Now, animals may understand us when we speak, and I'm sure everybody can relate to that. An animal that they do know their name, they know when you tell them no. Or in the case of the cats in our household, they understand the word treats. But we don't always have the capacity to translate a specific meow, a woof, a chirp, or if anybody's a reptile owner, any of those specific tongue flicks. We can't always necessarily translate those. So that's why it is so important to pay attention to their body language. That is how they speak to us most often. And each of us who has been blessed to be loved by an animal will understand that they all have those unique personalities. I think we can all relate to that. And so that means that how we approach them also needs to be unique. At our house, we have a silver Ouija. In other words, a Norwegian forest cat. And if anybody knows those cats, they're big and they're fluffy. And this cat, he absolutely loves to be snuggled on. No amount of attention is too much for him. So he's constantly following us around the house, wanting us to carry him or wanting to love on us. And if there's somebody who's laying down in a blanket, and Deb can attest to this, if you put a blanket on and you sit down on the couch for more than 2 minutes, you'll have a cat. Now, our tuxedo Ouija, not so much. He much prefers to be people adjacent. By that I mean he will happily sit next to you on the couch for hours at a time. As soon as you go and you start petting him for more than about 15 seconds or even just 2 seconds longer than he really wants, he'll go off to find a quieter place to nap. I mean, that's just his personality. But you understand what I mean. Our animal companions really do have their own personalities, their own ideas about things. Some of them can be very strong-willed, regardless of what type of an animal we're talking about. So this morning, so far, you've heard me talk about the Rainbow Bridge, unconditional love, speaking their language, as well as touching on the various personalities of our animal companions. Now, this is the portion of my sermon where I pull each of those threads together and I weave them into a nice, comfy little throw blanket for each of you to take home with you. As I've spoken about previously, we never die. We just change form. Our animal companions also do not die. Love never dies. It just takes on a different form. It has also been my experience as a medium, and indeed as a spiritualist, that much like when those of us inhabiting human form relinquish this life and move on to the next, our animal companions also move on to another plane of existence. They don't die and they don't cease to exist. They just change form. And it is amazing, and it's beautiful, and it's filled with joy, love, peace, and tranquility. Well, let me put it this way. As much tranquility as you can find when you have a whole infinite menagerie that are in spirit over there, barking and mooing and cawing, and you get the picture. In my experience, not only do birds of a feather flock together, but so do chimpanzees and dolphins and cows and everything in existence. As a general rule, those animals will tend to hang out with or to flock together with the animals that are of a similar vibration, much like people. Now, normally that means that they will hang out more or stay around the other species that they're most connected with. However, that's not always the case. And by that I mean, if you have and I've actually seen this before, I brought through a chimpanzee in a reading once that was hanging out with other chimps. And most of the time, the dolphins will hang with the dolphins, the chimps will hang with the chimps, the cats will hang with the cats. But like I said, it's not always that case. We've had, my wife Deb was lucky enough to be owned by the world's greatest wiener dog, a dachshund named Max, that in spirit, he doesn't spend nearly as much time hanging around with other dogs as he does with his favorite feline companions that he knew when he was here on Earth. They make each other happy to play in that eternal garden of joy and peace and love and happiness, so that's who they choose to hang out with. And it's pretty amazing to me, but it's really not all that surprising that they would have found each other there. So
that reminds me, how many of you out there feel like you've had a visit from an animal companion in spirit? Kind of had a feeling I get a lot of hands for that one. Good. Now, such a visit can take many forms. For example, you could have a dream about them. Or it happens more often than not around our household. If I'm going to use you as an example again. If Deb isn't feeling well, she can be laying in bed and all of a sudden she'll feel Max jump up on the bed and trot across the bed to go lay next to her where he used to. Or the one that always gets me is he'll make his presence known in other ways. When Max was physically here, he was actually a very polite dog, believe it or not, for a dachshund. And he used to sleep in a dog bed next to our bed at night. And in the middle of the night, if he had to get up and, go potty, he would walk his way across the floor. And so you'd wake up in the middle of the night and you'd hear tap, 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 tap. And then you'd hear him turn around, tap, 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 tap. He'd just pace back and forth on our hardwood floors. And we used to make the joke that he was typing the great American novel as he just tap, 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 tap. Well, imagine after his passing, it's kind of fun at 2:30 and 4 in the morning to have 6 years after he crossed over to hear tap, 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 tap. It's just his way of letting us know he's with us. And I'm sure a few of you can relate to that kind of a silly little memory. And it's more than just a cute story or a fun experience for us to remind us that Max is still visiting. But it also kind of speaks as going back to that, a way to understand their language. I learned very quickly that Max's tap dancing meant that he had to go outside. And I learned that by paying attention to his behavior. But also, as a means to make it easier for you to do more than just go, okay, what does that mean? One thing that you can do is to actually use telepathy to connect with your animal companions. And I do this all the time with our cats. All you really need to do, and this is one of those things that is so simple that we make it difficult, all you really need to do is take a deep breath, help yourself relax a little bit, and then gently set your intention in your mind of sending a thought to reach out to that tiny soul that is inhabiting the other body across the room. Your animal companion, they may look at you a little funny the first couple of times because they're not used to us speaking to them in that way. But after a few tries, you'll notice that their behavior changes. Even if they're not doing what you're asking them to do, if they just kind of, you'll see it and you'll notice that they do pick up on those thoughts. But that's also something that I need to touch on is animals will do whatever they want to do. And so they all have free will. They can act however they like. But this also, honestly, this goes to the golden rule. Treat each and every living thing with respect, and they will reciprocate. And it's the same thing with your animal companions. Now, so what happens to your animal companions who have already passed from the physical after you yourself transform from the chrysalis of human form into the butterfly of spirit? As you make your transition, they also will greet you joyfully and with gratitude for the love and the support that you've given them when they were here. I've seen that more times than I can count. I mean, it is an amazing reunion that I have seen, and I rest assured and rest easily knowing that all those who've loved you will be waiting for you. And not only do they visit you while you're here, but they will also greet you in the hereafter. All of your animal companions, they come back to visit, and they'll be waiting for you when your time comes. And, if you're lucky, maybe they'll have the throw blanket that we weaved together here today. So when you've had to say your temporary goodbyes to a beloved animal companion, don't forget, they do still exist. It's not that they're gone forever. They've just metaphorically gone across the rainbow bridge to await your arrival. And if you are still grieving the loss of an animal or a human companion, know that we here at the Christabelle Spiritualist Church, we can help. Believe it or not, and I know quite a few of you have seen this firsthand, our animal companions can come through to us during our spirit greetings. Just out of curiosity, I want a quick show of hands. Is anybody here? I know a few of you have seen that during an animal come through during a spirit greeting or a session. Okay, quite a few of you. Okay, cool. I was just curious. So please, reach out to us here at Christabelle and allow us to help you find that light of spiritualist truth so that you too can find your way with peace, love, and the knowledge of eternal life. Thank you.